Thank you, councillors, members of senior staff, the press and the gallery, and a particular warm welcome in the gallery. It's a real pleasure to have in the gallery former long-serving Mayor and Councillor of Temora Shire and of course a recent Freedom of the Shire inductee, Mr. Peter Spears. Welcome back to the chamber to you, Mr. Spears, albeit in the gallery. It's great to have you here with us, and please make sure you are aware that you're especially warmly welcome to stay for as long as you should desire. But a warm welcome to you. And of course to Auxiliary Lieutenant Caleb Smith from the Salvation Army and the Temora Christian leaders, a warm welcome to you. So in extending a warm welcome, I advise and declaring the meeting open, Temora Shire Council, the meeting for May. This meeting is being recorded and will be placed on Temora Shire Council's webpage for public information. And all present today, of course, we're reminded that whilst we are speaking, that we're agreeing that our views and comments are being recorded and published. And we're also reminded that if or when we're speaking, that of course we're to be respectful to others and use the appropriate language. Temora Shire Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures during our council meeting. So councillors, we proceed to acknowledgement of country. As we begin our meeting today, Temora Shire councillors, our senior staff and I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of Temora Shire's land and waters, the Wiradjuri people. We pay our heartfelt respect to their elders, both past and present, acknowledging the role they have and will continue to play as members of our Temora Shire community, a special place we all proudly call home. Thank you very much. Councillors, we now go into our opening prayer, and that is in the hands of Auxiliary Lieutenant Caleb Smith, and thank you very much for being with us. Could you please use Councillor McLaren's microphone? Thank you.
Heavenly Father, thank you for Temora Shire. Thank you for all the people who work so hard to make it what it is. We think today especially of our council employees who do all those background jobs that keep the place ticking over. So we ask that you bless them in their work and help the rest of us to not take them for granted. We also ask a blessing over this meeting today, that when issues and opportunities and problems are talked about, that when decisions are made, that you bless everyone here with insight and with courage and maybe even a little bit of patience too. Heavenly Father, thank you for hearing our prayers this day. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very, very much for those lovely words. And all the best with the Red Shield appeal this weekend. And it's been a tremendous response thus far. And we thank you for the work that you and your team do in our Temora Shire and the wider Temora zone.
Thank you very much.
So thank you. Councillors, apologies. Well, not really any apologies. Mr. General Manager, the Engineering Assets Manager, what's his situation?
Yes, he is online at the moment. He is unwell, but he's online for the meeting.
Thank you. So no apologies. Not. We shall move on. Any declaration of any interest at this time, please, councillors? Councillor Good.
Mr Mayor, I would like to declare in confidential item 21.5.
Thank you.
Interest.
Thank you, Councillor Good. That interest is noted. Anything further at this point? If not, let us proceed. We don't have any public presentations. Confirmation of the April minutes of Temora Shire Council. Is someone present care to move that they are received as true and correct, please? Thank you, Councillor Good has moved that way. Is there a seconder for the motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare that motion carried. Thank you. Matters arising, Mr. General Manager.
No matters arising, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, we now proceed to the mayoral minute, and you should have received that in your late report documents. And obviously, this is a very significant mayoral minute. entitled Emergency Services Levy Costs Damaging Increase. I am calling on councillors to support representations to the New South Wales Government in response to the highly damaging increase in the Emergency Services Levy imposed on all councils without warning for the 2023-2024 financial year. The ESL is a cost imposed on councils and insurance policyholders to fund the emergency services budget in New South Wales. The majority is paid as part of insurance premiums, with a further 11.7% funded by councils and 14.6% by the New South Wales Government. The ESL represents cost shifting at its worst, as it is imposed on councils without any mechanism for councils to recover costs. The levy increase for the state's 128 councils in the 2023-2024 year amounts to almost $77 million, with the total cost imposed on the local government sector increasing from $143 million in the current financial year to $219 million next year. This represents a 53.1% increase, completely dwarfing the IPART baseline rate peg of 3.7% for 2023-2024 and Council's rate increase of 3.7%. Reporting suggests that the increase in cost this year reflects a 73% increase in the state emergency service budget and an 18.5% funding increase to Fire and Rescue New South Wales. The impact of these large increases on Council's finances will be particularly severe in 2023-2024 as a result of the New South Wales Government deciding to scrap the subsidy for Council ESL payments. For many councils, the unexpected cost hit will absorb almost all of their IPART approved rate rise for this year, and in some cases absorb more than 100%. This is placing local government budgets under enormous pressure as they struggle from the combined impact of the pandemic, extreme weather events, high inflation and wage increases. IPART approved rate rises are intended to compensate for the impacts of inflation and increases in council costs. Instead, the rate increase will have to be largely diverted to the significantly higher ESL payments this year. New South Wales councils will have no option other than to make cuts to infrastructure and services expenditure. For Temora Shire Council, the ESL has increased by $152,857 for the 2023-2024 financial year, bringing the total council contribution for Temora Shire $503,015. This amounts to 89% of the expected increase in rate income for 2023-2024. If the New South Wales Government's decision is not reversed, the potential impacts on council's services, infrastructure, maintenance and delivery include a reduction in the rural unsealed roads maintenance budget. The timing of this development is particularly challenging for councils as it comes so late in the local government budgeting cycle, well after IPART's rate determination for the coming financial year. Council strongly supports a well-funded emergency services sector and the critical contribution of emergency services works and volunteers, many of whom are councillors and council staff. However, it is essential that these services be supported through an equitable, transparent and sustainable funding model. Local Government New South Wales and the New South Wales Country Mayors Association have raised the serious concerns of the local government sector with the New South Wales Government and is seeking the support of councils across New South Wales in amplifying this advocacy. And councillors, there is a series of recommendations there for you to consider. That Council 1 writes to the New South Wales Treasurer, New South Wales Minister for Emergency Services, New South Wales Minister for Local Government and our local state member for Cootamundra, expressing Council's strong opposition to the New South Wales Government's last-minute decision to impose an enormous emergency services levy cost increase on councils for 2023-2024 by scrapping the ESL subsidy for councils and extremely late in council's budgeting cycle. B, noting that as a consequence of the unannounced 73% increase in the State Emergency Service budget and an 18% increase in the Fire and Rescue New South Wales budget, Council's 3.7% rate increase to provide essential community services infrastructure has been significantly eroded. C, calling on the New South Wales Government to take immediate action to 1. Restore the ESL subsidy in 2023-2024. 2. Urgently introduce legislation to decouple the ESL from the rate peg to enable councils to recover the full cost. 3. Develop a fairer, more transparent and financially sustainable method of funding critically important emergency services in consultation with local government. 2. Council writes to the Chairman of the Independent Pricing and Regulatory Tribunal, IPART, advising that Council's forced emergency services contribution is manifestly disproportionate to the 2023-2024 rate cap, which has resulted in additional financial stress. And finally, that Council writes to the President of LGNSW and the Chairman of the New South Wales Country Mayors Association seeking urgent advocacy to provide relief to councils from the significant burden of the emergency services levy. And councillors, what I would also add to that is, whilst we mean everything that has been written there, we also have to acknowledge that the previous government, whilst they did give us those ESL subsidies, they did not fix the problem either. So that has to be noted, and I also add that as a verbal addition to this important mayoral minute. Councillor Judd.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Question on the reason for the increase. Is it for extra staff and equipment, or is it the long-term health issues that we're worried about?
Thank you, Councillor Judd. Does the General Manager or the Director of Administration and Finance have a response? Director of Administration and Finance.
Through you, Mr Mayor. I understood that the reason was that the volunteers were going to be covered for a range of cancers that they'd been exposed to, and the insurance to cover that.
Thank you, Councillor Judd. But it's a very important mayoral minute that's before you today. There is outrage, and I mean that term very, very sincerely. There is outrage. We've been meeting with the LGNSW chairman, president rather, and the chairman of Country Mayors regularly in recent weeks, and it's this is beyond the pale, and we can't keep going down this path. Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move those recommendations, but I also would like to add an additional one, that the state government look at reimposing the levy on all properties in New South Wales. The reason why I would like that is because they did look at it previously. It was basically introduced but withdrawn at the last minute. The way that the emergency levies are paid are levied on council and on insurance policies. So if you don't have an insurance policy, you are not paying your fair share of fire levy. And the proposals previously were that it would be levied on every landholder in New South Wales, which shares the levy over everyone who has the potential to use the fire and emergency services. And I see that to be first of all, a more equitable way to pay the fire levy, but secondly, not imposing a further burden on council when council really don't have the funds to be able to do it.
Thanks very much, Councillor Good. So we will add that point 4 in moving that. Is there a seconder? Deputy Mayor, thank you. Councillor Sinclair. Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Keeping in mind that there is Country Mayors board meeting in Sydney next week, and a series of state government ministers and shadow ministers will be addressing the members. And unfortunately, the local government minister has just recently withdrawn his attendance, which is frustrating. So further discussion, Councillor Judd.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I understand the new Labor government has deferred their first budget till later in the year to springtime. So I think it's most important that the next few months there is very high advocacy to try and change their mind on this issue.
Thanks, Councillor Judd. I thought it's a point well made. And just to also advise councillors and all in the chamber that, we advise you, the General Manager and I both signed a letter on behalf of council and our community to all the new ministers of the New South Wales Government, and also extending them an invitation to come and visit Temora Shire. And the Emergency Services Minister has also put a handwritten note saying that he would love to accept our invitation to visit. So the Executive Assistant is arranging that with his office. So I just thought that was impressive that he's written in hand that he would love to come out and visit with us as a council and a community. Well, if there's no further discussion, councillors, I will put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried, and I thank you very much for that. Councillors, we go to our business papers, the white business papers on page 11, the minutes of Council's Access and Equity Committee. Someone moved that the report is received. Thank you, Councillor Good. Councillor Judd, moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. The chairman of that committee is our Director of Environmental Services. The Director, do you have any comments?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Well attended meeting. There was 3 issues up for discussion with the recommendations from the committee on pages 12, 16 and 21.
Thank you, Mr Director. Councillors, you have the report and recommendations there for you to consider. Someone prepared to move those recommendations, or is there an alternate? Councillor Good?
I'll move that way.
Thank you. Move the report and recommendations for the Access and Equity Committee. Is there a seconder for the motion, please? Councillor Reinhold. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Discussion? There's no further discussion. I will put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. I declare that motion carried. And thank you. Councillors, we go over to page 36, the minutes of the Assets and Operations Committee report, and the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, is the chairman.
Move the report be received.
Thank you. The Deputy Mayor has moved the report received. Second for the motion. Thank you, Councillor Good. Moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. And declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, anything you wish to highlight in the Assets and Operations Committee report, please?
The only thing was 2 things, I guess. What I had underlined was emergency service levy at the back, but I think that's been well covered in the mayoral minute. The other one is the item 4.1, the bridge size culvert naming. I would like to see the discussion around that. Resolution is to be just as bridge. I would like to. My preference would be Hodes Bridge, so I'll just perhaps have perhaps we have a bit of discussion.
Thank you. So you're not moving at this stage in relation to that report 4.1. You're just flagging that.
At this stage, I'll just
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillors, your thoughts? Certainly, it was debated at length and done so in a genuine manner by all councillors in the chamber. I go to Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I know in the past when we've had items requiring naming, we've asked for public submissions and suggestions from the public if they're interested. So perhaps a request for some input from the community about suggested names might be appropriate.
Thanks, Councillor McLaren. I think that's a great idea, and perhaps it's something in discussions with Councillor Judd and the Deputy Mayor and the General Manager and the engineering works manager today that that's something that we don't currently have a policy on, and that is the rural road naming, and perhaps there could be some guidelines worked on as well. I know we're dealing with what's before us, but and perhaps what Councillor McLaren suggested could well be a potential way forward. So, councillors, so we're just dealing with 4.1 of the assets report at the moment, the Mary Gilmore Way bridge size culvert naming. Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Could I move an amendment to that motion?
Oh, well, you're just going to move a...
Just a
you're gonna move
motion?
a motion.
Yep, I'd like
Thank you.
to move a motion that the committee resolve to recommend to council that expressions of interest be sought from the community for the naming of the bridge.
For 20, so was it 28 days?
Yeah.
Yep,
For
28
a period of
days.
28
Did you want to
days.
mention on further or a separate motion about the and develop a policy on rural naming of rural roads?
I think that'd be a separate motion. So
okay.
just if we could ask for expressions of interest on that
Yep.
naming, thank you.
Thank you. I'll take that as a motion. Second of the Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Move. Seconded. Discussion. There's no discussion. If not, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Now, there was flagged another motion potentially about developing a policy. Is that something Council wish to consider? The Deputy Mayor, Councillor
Yes,
Sinclair.
Mr Mayor, I'm willing to move that way, that we develop a policy on rural infrastructure for naming.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Just before I get a seconder, the engineering works manager, you just wish to seek some clarity?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, just want to clarify, it is noted in the roads hierarchy policy and it mentions rural road naming to be considered on a case-by-case basis. So it is noted in that policy currently, so it might be just a revision of that and how they are approached in terms of
Drill down a bit more detail.
expression of interest and including structures, because we have tended to name drainage structures and occasionally hills as well, like Hartwigs Hill. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you, Mr Manager. So the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, the motion that we have is, where is it, please? That Council develop that Council revise the existing policy on rural road naming and associated and infrastructure.
To include rural infrastructure.
Rural road naming, revise the existing. On the naming of rural roads and infrastructure. Okay, so is the Deputy Mayor happy with that motion? The General Manager, we're happy with that?
Rural infrastructure or rural roads?
Rural road and infrastructure, yeah. Sorry? Well, features, infrastructure, yeah. Landmarks, etc. So the Deputy Mayor, you're happy with that inclusion that? Okay, and landmarks. So rural roads, infrastructure and landmarks. Okay. Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion, please? Councillor Judd, you're seconding the motion?
Yes, but
Thank you.
just
Councillor
a
Judd.
question though, wouldn't the same policy apply to the naming of streets in urban areas as well?
Well, we already have, thank you, Councillor Judd, we already have a policies understand or an appendix I've seen at least, on urban streets. The engineering works manager.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Just confirming what you're saying there. So, urban road naming is already in that roads hierarchy policy with an appendix to it, Appendix F of that policy, that has the list of names that come through council to get put on for future namings of urban streets. So, urban streets are considered off that list, but when it comes to rural road namings and other infrastructure, it's considered based on geological location and the families that are sort of in that area, rather than off that direct list that's in that urban road naming list. That road naming list for urban is there up front as per the policy, so that when someone comes to council in terms of a subdivision or a development, that can be provided to them up front and say this is the names that you can choose from in terms of the roads or streets within that subdivision, and they can consider it from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Judd. You'll be pleased to know, Councillor Judd, that your name, when I looked at it today, the policy, that your name and former Mayor of Temora Municipal, Mr McRae, is there on the bottom of that list, saying that you'll have a road named when you pass this mortal curl. That's right.
I look forward to it.
Long live Councillor Judd and Mr McRae. So thank you very much. I'm going to put that motion moved by the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair and Councillor Judd, that council revise the existing road hierarchy policy to include the naming of rural roads, infrastructure and landmarks. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. I thank you very much. Councillors, the remainder of the reports and recommendations for the Assets and Operations Committee. Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to address item 4.5 about the pram ramp at the base of the tree at the Uniting Church corner.
Yes, 4.5, which is on page 53. Thank you. Councillor McLaren, you have the call.
Thank you. I just have concerns with the current resolution locating a pram ramp infrastructure so close to the base of that large tree, not only in terms of the longevity of that infrastructure in terms of cracking up under root pressure, but also scraping the pavement down beside the tree and any danger that might have to the tree surviving. So I've had discussions with the works manager about a more suitable location, and on the western side of the road there is a no standing sign, and if we locate a pram ramp in line with the edge of that, it would come within a metre of the pram ramp on the western side, so you would cross over in line with it, have to walk to the side a metre, and then you'd be able to go up that ramp. Whilst it's not exactly in line, I think it's a better investment of council funds, and I think that directional markers can be used at that point if there's any future requirement. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor McLaren, and thank you for reaching out to explain your views. Now, the Engineering Assets Manager, do you have anything you wish to add to Councillor McLaren's comments that may assist Council?
Through you, Mr Mayor. No other comment really in regards to that. As noted, it's really only that the pram ramps wouldn't line up. They don't line up at the minute anyway, but they wouldn't line up in a new scenario, which for new infrastructure we should be aiming at ensuring the network lines up appropriately. But I understand the points raised as well in terms of the particular location and whether that needs to be a decision now and look at redoing the other side at some point down the track as well to line up if that's the desire of council. But yeah, point taken.
In terms of budget implications, if Councillor McLaren's position was taken up, that would be in the existing proposed budget? Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Let's go to Councillor Irvine.
Yeah, I just want to point out that the only reason that it's sort of really being proposed is to achieve alignment with the pram ramp on the opposite side of the road. So if we're going to do one, we've got to do both as a job lot, or realistically, it's hardly worth doing, and we're starting to get a fair way from that corner if we start moving further up the street. I don't know that scraping that area beside that gum tree is going to prove to be detrimental to the tree. And it's pretty obvious from the fact that it's an old heritage brick piece of infrastructure there, and it hasn't been disturbed terribly, that tree has minimal impact. So I'm fairly confident that if council were to just proceed with the scraping, the re-asphalting around the tree and the reinstatement of a pram ramp in that location, I really don't see that there'd be any problems, and I think it just ticks a box. The last thing we want to be doing is putting money into infrastructure and then having it non-compliant. You can understand legacy projects, stuff from 40 or 50 years ago being non-compliant, but if we're doing new stuff and spending money, it has to be compliant.
Thank you, Councillor Irvine. Well, Councillors, Councillor McLaren's raised 4.5 out of the Assets and Operations Committee report. The Deboo Street tree pedestrian access issue goes to Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't have a particular view either way. All I want is to see that tree live. That's all I want. It's a significant tree and has great aesthetic value to that particular street and that church. So either way, it doesn't particularly worry me, but the tree must survive.
Yeah, thanks. Thank you, Councillor Oliver. I'll go to Councillor Reinhold.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm concerned that if we put the pram ramp where it is in the papers, that the trees obscuring drivers, is that something we should take into consideration?
Thank you, Councillor Reinhold. Well, Councillor McLaren, I'm happy if you wish to, in relation to 4.5, if you wish to move a motion.
I'm happy to move an amendment that council install a new pram ramp in line with the no standing sign on the western side of Polaris Street.
Thank you.
Of
Yes.
Deboo Street.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor McLaren. I'll accept that. Is there a second for the motion, please? Councillor Reinhold, thank you. Moved, seconded, discussion. This is in course relation to 4.5 on the business paper on page 53. Discussion on the motion. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As Councillor Irvine suggested there a while ago, is this compliant before we go ahead and do this? Because there'd be nothing worse than having to redo it, as Councillor Irvine said. So
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. I understood listening earlier that the engineer, the engineering works manager, that would comply. Am I reading that correctly, Mr Manager, please?
Through you, Mr Mayor, in terms of alignment, it doesn't, because under the standards it should line up for the members of the community that may be visually impaired. So it doesn't meet standard in terms of that. So I think that's where Councillor McLaren was talking about something in terms of tactiles or directional markers to be able to do that offset, but it's still probably not the best approach. We should be looking to keep direct alignment where we can in new infrastructure to be compliant with standards.
Right. Thank you, Mr Manager. I'll go back to Councillor McLaren and Councillor Reinhold. Are you still happy after listening to the Engineering Works Manager's current advice? Councillor McLaren.
I have no comment at the moment.
No, thank you. So, councillors, you have a motion before you, and that is from Councillor McLaren and Councillor Reinhold, that in relation to report 4.5, that report 4.5, Deboo Street tree pedestrian access issue, council install a pram ramp in line with the no standing sign. That captures it, Councillor McLaren and Councillor Reinhold. Thank you. So moved and seconded. I'm going to put that motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Please raise your hand, sorry. All those of that opinion. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion defeated. So, councillors, we go back to the remainder of the report of Assets and Operations Committee And the recommendations is, Councillor Good, you're moving the remainder of the report and recommendations for Assets and Operations Committee. The Deputy Mayor has seconded the motion. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there discussion? If there's no discussion, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. I thank you very much. Councillor, let's go over to page 89, the Economic Development Visitations Committee report, and I was the chairman of that particular committee in the absence of Councillor McLaren. And someone please move that the report be received. Thank you, Councillor Judd. Councillor Good. Moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, there's the report there for you to consider and its associated recommendations. Is someone prepared to move the report and recommendations, or is there an alternate? Councillor Good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Good has moved the report and recommendations for Economic Development Visitations Committee. Is there a seconder? The Deputy Mayor. Thank you. Councillor Sinclair moved, seconded. Discussion. Discussion. Councillor Irvine.
It was just noted in the railway precinct master plan that initially council were informed that we'd been unsuccessful in an application for grant funding, but the economic development manager advised at the meeting that we were automatically resubmitted and were successful in round 2 of that funding. So I was a little bit surprised to see that report come through in the paperwork, knowing that we'd been unsuccessful in the funding, and we hadn't probably been informed that it had been resubmitted and then it had popped back up. But it's a good thing to see, and it's a good a pretty big area down there that it wouldn't hurt to have some sort of a master plan, particularly with the upcoming Party Flour Mill development. I think that's going to be some pretty key infrastructure in that area, and I think it's really critical that some really serious thought goes into that whole area.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say that it's very pleasing to see the amount of attendances at the community events program. It looks like everyone in the town went to at least two items. I went to several of them, and they were very well patronised. And yeah, it's good to see that the money was used beneficially, and our local people got enjoyment out of it.
Exactly. Thank you, Councillor Good. Exactly. Whenever we come together as a community, it's always a special time, that's for sure. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. I thank you so very, very much. Councillors, in terms of late reports, you have late committee report, the minutes of the Temora Agriculture Innovation Centre Partnership Committee meeting. So you all should have those in your late reports. And the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, is the chairman.
I'll move the report be received, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. The report was received. Seconded, Councillor Bushell. Thank you. Moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, do you have anything you wish to highlight in the report, please?
No, not.
Thank you. Councillors, any items that you wish to point out and discuss? Pardon me. If not, is someone prepared to move the report and recommendations of the Temora Agriculture Innovation Centre's Partnership Committee meeting? Thank you, Councillor Judd. Councillor Good, thank you. Moved, seconded. Further discussion? If there's no further discussion, further discussion, I'll ask the chairman of the committee, the Deputy Mayor, how do you feel that things are progressing overall, Mr. Deputy Mayor, in relation to this partnership? Question without notice, but
Yeah, look, as far as I'm aware, I think everything's going pretty much to plan. They've had a few issues with the cropping side of things. I think the agreement they had with Hutchin and Pearce is finished, and they've got a farming enterprise who's taken over the cropping side of things, but I don't know that I think they're a bit behind their schedule on that too because of wet weather.
Thank you very much. I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. So over to page 107, we go to delegates' reports. Do we have delegates' reports, please? Go to the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I attended the Lake Committee AGM last week, along with the Director of Environmental Services, and yeah, they've had an excellent year. I think there's something like $4,500 in fees that collected from launch fees and so forth. They knew that there's been a little change. The Brett Corter, who's been the president for quite a few years now, 12 years was it, he has stood down this year, and Simon Forsyth is the new chairman of the committee.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. Well, we certainly acknowledge Mr Cornford's service as the long-standing chairman of that committee, and also congratulate the team that he leads, and the new chairman, Mr Forsyth. So congratulations to him. Thank you. Further delegates' reports. Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended the Bundawarra Centre for the Temora Rural Museum meeting last Thursday night, I think it was, and they were very pleased with their open day. The amount of money they made was, I think, about $5,000 or $6,000 they cleared. Very pleased with the attendance, and they've got scored some sort of a coup as far as a four-wheel drive ambulance is concerned. It's being donated by the Victorian state of Victoria, and there's only about 2 in existence, so it's just another addition to their magnificent collection. So, but other than that, everything's going pretty good out there. So, thank you.
Excellent. Thanks, Councillor Oliver. Further delegates' reports. I go to Councillor Judd.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I represented council last Friday at the Thank You Barbecue and Bowls afternoon in appreciation to our staff for their work during the, especially the 22 flood in the area, and also with Councillor Oliver, Councillor McLaren and Councillor Bushell. And I think the afternoon was well organised by our assets engineering manager, and I think the staff really appreciated the day. So,
thanks very much, Councillor Judd and Councillor McLaren, Councillor Oliver and Councillor Bushell. And unfortunately I was a late scratching, but I understand it was a well-received occasion, and thank the General Manager and others that were able to attend. So thank you. Councillor Reinhold.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. More of a request. I've been to several meetings around in the Arts Centre, and in the meeting room, the sun pelts in of an afternoon and it's quite blinding. So I was wondering if somehow we could find some money to put a few blinds up. So I'm just throwing it out there right now.
Thank you, Councillor Reinhold. I'd suggest to you that we can have discussions offline with the General Manager and Director of Admin and Finance and just see where we may be able to land, and perhaps report to Council to consider. Thanks, Councillor Reinhold. Further delegates' reports. Councillor Judd.
Last Saturday I attended the centenary celebrations of the Erie Park Golf Club, and it's 100 years since they started. The first golf course, I think, had 3 links on the Erie Park showground. Then they had to hop over a stile on the fence and go over grade and go in the further links where the golf club is at the present time. And one stage back in the early 70s, they had the record for the lowest number of members, which was 3 at one stage, the world record. But anyway, they've come back now, and I think they've got about 18 members or something now. And it's, Yes, it was a good day. Mr Bill Harris from Temora, who's 98, was a former golfer. He's one of the champions some years ago. He attended, and he walked the first 9 holes before hopping on the cart for the second 9 holes, whereas everyone else just hops on the cart all the time these days. So that's how still lively Mr Harris is. Yeah. So it was a good evening, and yeah, it was well worth going. Congratulations. The other thing is, they've been volunteers all these 100 years and they've hardly got anything out of council. It's only in recent times they've got a few small grants, but they've just been a quiet group looking after themselves. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Councillor Judd. Yes, they have been very self-sufficient, and I think the member for Cootamundra gave them a grant here last year, which was very well received. I went out there to help celebrate that, and the great spread and hospitality they put on for us was tremendous. But on behalf of all of Council, we warmly congratulate the Erie Park Golf Club and thank you for representing Council. So thank you, Councillor Judd. We go to Councillor Bushell. Delegates
Mr. Mayor, I
reports.
still get a little bit confused by what you've got to delegate at these things.
Delegates reports. So anything that you've been asked to represent Council at or attending, whether that's at a meeting or a dinner, a conference, etc.
So myself and my husband attended the 100 years of the Group 9 celebrations at the rifle range function room. It was a lovely day. We got to sit on the table with John Kelly, so that was pretty special.
Wow.
So the other special outcome of that, there was 4 elderly men that were in their 90s and they got to cut the cake, so that was pretty special to witness. And all speakers that were at the event spoke really well, so thank you for asking me to attend that. And the other item I did was the girls' change room for the rugby union opening, so I think if I declare that as well.
Yes.
Which was a lovely afternoon as well. So thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Bushell. We appreciate you taking time to represent us at those events. And just in relation to further delegates' reports, I was very pleased to be there for the netball courts opening. And I know Councillor McLaren, an important part of the master planning phase. I think Councillor Bushell, Councillor Reinhold was there that I remember seeing. That was a very special occasion. The crowd, of course, with Temora and the Northern Jets, Erie Park Athletic Football and netball clubs. It was unreal just seeing the sea of players and people. It was quite overwhelming, frankly, and it just shows what can be done when council partner together with clubs and state government. What can happen. So again, that was a special occasion. I think Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'd like to acknowledge the incredible volunteer hours, in-kind donations that club and everyone involved had multiple working bees to lay the concrete and set the lights up and things. And I think a letter from council expressing our appreciation for their volunteer labour to get that magnificent facility, which we could not have afforded without that in-kind labour, would be a great thing if we wrote to the committee expressing our thanks. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thanks, Councillor McLaren. I think that's most appropriate. So you're moving that direction. Second, Councillor Reinhold. Thank you. Moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. And Council, just to advise, we had our Sportsman of the Year Awards dinner. The first one where we were all together in the traditional format at the Ex-Services Club on last Friday night, and 220 guests were there to salute these outstanding sportsmen and women of Temora Shire, and it was a special occasion, and I thank the Deputy Mayor was also there, but of course Councillor Oliver, who sits on the Executive Committee, and that Deputy Mayor was particularly pleased because his granddaughter, Miss Sally Sinclair, was the recipient of the Michael McCormack All-Rounder Scholarship and trophy. So that was special. But again, to all the nominees and the award winners, Council warmly congratulates each and every one of them. And lastly, Councillors, the General Manager and I will be attending the Country Mayors Association meetings in Sydney next Thursday and Friday. And as I said, there's several ministers and shadows that will be talking to us. It was unfortunate the local government minister has pulled out. However, we certainly have invited him to the August meeting, but this will be the last meeting of the Country Mayors Association for our General Manager, and the former Agricultural Minister, Mr Marshall, has invited us for lunch with our state member, so we look forward to just quietly paying tribute to our General Manager at Parliament House next week. So that's all the delegates' reports that we have. And we now go on to page 108 for the Mayor's report for the month of April. And there's a recommendation, councillors, on page 111 that the report be noted. Thank you, Councillor Good. Moved. Councillor Reinhold, thank you. Moved and seconded. Discussion, the Deputy Mayor.
Yes, thanks, Mr Mayor. I just noticed on 5th of April, the dinner I went to representing council was also the general manager and the director of environmental services were there too. But it was hosted by. It wasn't hosted by Farm Link. It was hosted by the Riverina local land services.
Oh, I beg your pardon. Right. So thank you for that. Can the record please show that the Deputy Mayor was also accompanied by the General Manager and the Director of Environmental Services, was it? Yep. And that it was hosted by the Riverina Local Land Services. The 5th of April. Now, so if there's no further discussion or amendment, I'll put the motion. All those with that opinion, please say aye. The contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Councillors, of course, what was scheduled in the white papers, of course, has been deferred to the confidential sections. So, and apologise for the oversight. And of course, we go to page 116, staff reports. Motion to receive staff reports, please. Councillor Good, Councillor Oliver, thank you. Moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, we go over to page 117, the General Manager's report, 12.1, the seals. The General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Seeking endorsement of the affixing of the 2 seals.
Thank you. The Deputy Mayor. Is that what you're flashing for? No. So the red on the microphone flashing for those listening. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinkley, you're moving the recommendation. Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Reinhold, thank you. Moved, seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Over to page 118, 12.2, calendar of events. The General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The calendar of events for May is presented to Council for noting.
Thank you. Councillors, you have a recommendation there for you to consider. Was the Deputy Mayor, Councillor McLaren, moved, seconded. Is further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, we now proceed over to page... Sorry, Mr General Manager, is there anything of an urgent late nature, please?
No, nothing more. Thanks,
No,
Mayor.
thank you. Thank you. Councillors, we go to page 119, the Engineering Services Department report, and 13.1, restricted access vehicle policy, and that's in the hands of the Engineering Works Manager.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, report is noted, so this is just the policy coming back after being on exhibition, so happy to take any comments, and I think the engineering asset manager is listening if there is any questions or comments. Thank you.
Mr Manager. Councillors, any comments or questions, noting that we didn't receive any submissions? Councillor Good.
I move the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Good has moved the recommendation. Seconder for the motion, Councillor Bushell, thank you. Moved, seconded. Discussion, does the Assets Engineering Manager have any comment? If you're coherent. What was that? No comment. Oh, no comment. Thank you. We do wish you a speedy recovery, Mr Manager. And thank you for chiming into our meeting. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Nothing of an urgent late nature from the engineering works manager.
Through you, Mr Mayor, nothing further.
Thank you. And the engineering assets manager.
No, Mr Mayor.
No, Mr. He's got a cheer squad there, has he? Thank you, Mr. Manager. Let's proceed to page 139. The Department of Administration and Finance report, 15.1, councillor fees. The Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The report's as written. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillors, the report is there for you to consider together with a recommendation. I know we always struggle every year because, you know, obviously we have an interest, but we've also got to make a decision on it, and it's always very challenging for us to determine our own rates of pay, which in the scheme of things are very, very humble. Councillor Judd.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I gather by page 160 that I did send a submission in on the last comments to the tribunal.
Thank you, Councillor Judd. A question, General Manager?
Yes, we did, Councillor Judd. We said it was. We argued that it was to do with, you know, the workload on a council didn't really relate to the size of the population or whatever, but there were a whole heap of other factors. Not they took a lot of notice of it, but nonetheless we made the submission.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. I'll read the report, and I don't think we got very far with that idea, but it's I seem to just concentrate on just the size of the councils, and I don't realise that, as the General Manager says, that the workload for nearly any size council is nearly the same. You know, very, very little difference. The regulations today are that onerous to what we're going to do, whether you're a small council or a big council. So I think we should keep pushing along, but yeah.
Thanks, Councillor Judd. I would think everyone in the chamber would agree with you. The workload has increased, as you and I'm sure former Mayor Mr Spears, who's still in the chamber, and thumbs up for that, would acknowledge the workload has increased exponentially. But again, we don't do it for the money, and we never ever would. But we've also got to be mindful that not just us, but those that will follow us as well, that we do have to make it reasonably attractive but also affordable. So, councillors, the recommendation from the Director is that the proposed fees be adopted for the 2023-2024 financial year. Or was there an alternate? Councillor Good?
I'll move that way.
Thank you. So you're moving the recommendation. Seconder for the motion, Councillor Irvine? No. Seconder for the motion, Councillor Judd. Thank you. Moved. Seconded. Discussion on the motion, Councillor Irvine.
Just looking further into the business papers, obviously the financial situation isn't that flash. Particularly, you know, a lot of comment at the start of the meeting about emergency services levies and all the rest, but I don't see any reason why we need to move it up at the moment. If we can deliver balanced budgets and surpluses and stuff, then I think it's worthwhile. But seriously, costs have got to be shaved wherever they can, and I don't see any reason to put their wages up for the councillors at the moment. Most people aren't, like, it's a token at best, so it makes no difference.
Thank you, Councillor Irvine. Councils have determined previously not to take up the increase. There has certainly been precedent for that. However, it's all obviously considered on an annual basis. The Director, if councillors did not take up, and I know we're discussing the motion here, but do we have a question about notice? Any rough approximate dollar value, how that would assist the budget? So yeah, without notice, and approximate figures are saying a couple of $1,000s. Okay, thank you. So that's important that be considered as part of the consideration of the motion that is currently before us, and that is that we adopt the proposed fees. Councillor Irvine?
Yeah, I'm just looking at, just on the councillors' fees alone, it's an increase of $1,767 on 9,850, so it's bumping up to 20% of that amount. It's a pretty hefty increase. Is
Not quite sure, Councillor Irvine, whether that's true. So I'll go to the Director of Administration and Finance.
So the figures, if the 3% was adopted, my current budget figures were $695 short overall, including superannuation. So the budget included probably about 2.5% increase, whereas this is a 3% increase. So.
Okay, councillors, so we have a motion before us, and that is the proposed fees be adopted. That's on the motion of Councillor Good and Councillor Judd. If there's no further discussion, the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair.
Well, I do agree with Councillor Irvine that we're not here for the money and so forth, but I think the fact that we don't take the maximum amount anyway is we're showing sort of restraint and by a couple of $1,000 each. So I think we're already doing our bit to keep the budget in line anyway.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I have to say that, as councillors would know and previous councillors, I've raised this before because all of us like to save where we can. But I think the Deputy Mayor makes a good point, and also I know that there's councillors, that we don't claim for what we're entitled to in many cases, because again, we're trying to assist in many ways, and we're grateful for that, and that does have to be teased out because that can be just inadvertently taken for granted, whether that's travel or other expenses that are not necessarily claimed. So we have the motion before us, and I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. And thank you very much, councillors. So let's now go over to page 188, 15.2, the draft fees and charges for 2023-2024. The Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The fees and charges are as presented and as workshopped before Easter. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Councillors, you have the draft fees and charges report there and a recommendation for you to consider. Councillor McLaren.
Happy to move they be adopted.
Thank you. Councillor McLaren is moving that the draft fees and charges for 2023-2024 be placed in public exhibition for comment for 28 days. Seconded the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair. Moved, seconded. Is there further discussion? There's no further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. The General Manager.
Just in relation to a comment Councillor Irvine made earlier, the current fees are $11,277 and they're going up to $11,617, so about $400 a councillor.
Thank you. Councillor Irvine?
Yeah, I just misread that in the report. I didn't even do the calcs on what the current monthly is by 12, but I just looked at the 9,850 on the report and just assumed that was the current level of remuneration. Yeah. Thanks for the clarification.
Thank you. Councillors, we proceed over to page 202, 15.3, draft budget long-term financial plan. The Director of Administration and Finance.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So attached, the report's as written. A couple of adjustments that were made since our budget workshop, and they're all identified there for you. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Madam Director. Councillors, you have the report there. I'm sure whether the wage increase determination has been finalised. The Director, Councillor Good, just the Director.
Sorry, apologies, Mr Mayor, I forgot to mention that. So today the wage increase was announced, so 4.5%, which is sort of what we had heard along the grapevine. So there will need to be a variation made to the wages budget in the first quarterly budget review, probably to add another % or 1.5% in for next year.
Thank you very much. Councillor Good.
I move the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. So Councillor Good is moving recommendation that Council place the draft operational plan, delivery program and resourcing strategy on public display for 28 days for comment. Seconder for the motion. Thank you, Councillor Reinhold. Moved. Seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. The contrary, no. I declare that motion carried. And again, to the Director and your team, Council warmly thanks you for the effort put in to the budget papers to date. We know it's a real challenge for all New South Wales local government, but we're doing our best. We go to page 278, 15.4, welcoming committee new members. The Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So just a recommendation to admit 2 new members to the welcoming committee.
Thank you. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair.
Oh, I just realised one of those new members is a relation.
Thank you. So you're declaring that interest. That's noted. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Council's recommendation therefore to consider, and that is to consider appointing Ms Ruth Sinclair and Ms Lauren Carr to that committee. Councillor Reinhold, Councillor Good, moved and seconded. Discussion? No further discussion. I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare that motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, over to page 279, 15.5, causes for celebration, and as noted in the report, that Sunset Committee of Councillor Judd, myself and the Director of Administration and Finance and Economic and Community Development Officer attended and worked through the list that's presented. The Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The report's as written. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. And, pardon me. So, councillors, there is a recommendation therefore to consider that Council adopt the causes Temora Shire Council will support and the activities that Council undertake to acknowledge the causes as outlined. Councillor McLaren and Councillor Oliver moved and seconded. Discussion? There's no further discussion. I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. I thank you very much and thank Councillor Judd and the Director and the Officer for spending that time together sorting through that important process. Let's go to page 291, 15.6, the quarterly budget review, the Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So the report's as written. If you look at page 293 of your business paper, projected end of year results around about the 778 deficit, which is just slightly above the original budget figure of 723. There's a couple of variations there that have been explained. Probably not too bad of a position given the current environment. One thing, it doesn't appear that we'll be paid our FAGS grant in advance this year, which is a fair hit to our budget, so that's already been accounted for in the first quarter. This year, slightly offsetting that, I guess, is that we received the $2.4 million for the Rural and Regional Roads Recovery Fund, so we've received that and that has to be accounted for as income this year. Anyway, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Madam Director. The Council's quarterly budget review report is there for you to consider, and there is a recommendation that that quarterly budget review be adopted, or is there an alternate? Any comments or questions? Councillor Good.
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Move the recommendation that that we adopt the quarterly budget review for period ending 31 March. Seconded, Councillor Bushell. Thank you. Moved. Seconded. Discussion. There's no further discussion. I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. Declare that motion carried. Thank you. Now, anything of an urgent late nature from the Director?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you very much. Councillors, over to page 304, we go to correspondence. 16.1, Probus, the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, this is I mentioned this at one of our committee meetings, but essentially they want councils around the state to consider lighting up a landmark. Really, we don't have any, apart from probably the Bundawarra Centre, we really don't have anything that would sort of lend itself to that lighting it up. But, you know, Probus do a wonderful job within the community and whatever, and, you know, we could certainly promote Probus through our website, our Facebook page, but I can't see that we do have a landmark that would really suitable for what they're requesting.
Thank you, Mr General Manager. And just also to add, noting the correspondence has come from obviously the Probus South Pacific body, not necessarily the local club, and not to diminish what they're doing, of course, but I would think the club would be grateful for anything that council are able to do. Councillor Bushell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, sorry. I was just thinking maybe the triangular park, you know how we've got that spotlight that goes up onto the trees? Is there any way that we could make that blue and yellow? Maybe put some cellophane or something over it, I don't know.
The Deputy Mayor suggested that earlier.
You know, maybe it's a low cost approach of lighting up a landmark.
Thank you, Councillor Bushell. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair.
Thanks, Mayor. Unless there's going to be some, quite decent media push for this for stars, there's no point just lighting up a tree and people are going to say, what's this all about? You know, the Probus need to do a pretty strong press release or something first so people know what's going to be all about for start. So I tend to agree with the General Manager that we promote as much as we can through our social media page, and I think that should be enough.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Go to Councillor Judd.
I mean, the other thing that's happening is that around the world, a lot of buildings have been lit up in blue and yellow for Ukraine. So that's going to be a little bit confusing as well. So,
Thank you, Councillor Judd. And my worry is also, where do we start and stop with it as well? But anyway, you can't be crucified for asking. Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I move that we write back to them and say we don't have the capacity to be able to do that, but we're prepared, but we're open to promote it on our social media.
Thank you very much, Councillor Good. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Bushell. Moved, seconded, discussion. No further discussion. I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. I declare that motion carried. Thank you very much. Any urgent late items of correspondence, please, Mr General Manager?
No, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, we go to page 307. We have nil business with notice. Over to page 308, notice of motion, 18.1, notice of motion, General Manager Performance Review Committee, and Councillor Judd.
thanks, Mr Mayor. Councillors, in all my 40-odd years on council, I've only had two people up the front as our managers, Shire clerks, and that's been Ted Leary and Gary Lavelle. And when our present GM took over, he had been the Director of Admin and Finance, so it was a fairly smooth transition. But in July, we're getting a new GM, and I just think we need just maybe to look at rejigging things or see where things are appropriate. And I just think adding an extra member to our Performance Review Committee will just add that little bit of diversity to our panel and just make it a good thing to welcome our new GM, I think. So, and I'd like to move that motion, please.
Thank you. So Councillor Judd is moving that motion. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Reinhold. Moved and seconded, and discussion on the motion. Just in discussion on the motion, I need to inform Council when I saw this come through the business paper, obviously the right thing to do in my mind was to reach out to our current facilitators, Mr. Kiss and Mr. Pinnock from Mason Blackadder, and the overall consensus was that they were of the view that Councillor Oliver was appointed by the General Manager, because essentially the guidelines from the Office of Local Government for New South Wales suggest there needs to be the Mayor, the Deputy Mayor and one other councillor, and another that the General Manager may choose to represent them. Now, I advised Mr. Kiss and Mr. Pinnock that Councillor Oliver was not appointed by the General Manager at all, that he was elected along with Councillor Judd as the other two representatives at the time when we carried out that process. So, at the end of the day, Mr. Kiss was advising that because the current General Manager goes through the most rigorous review process than any other that both those gentlemen were aware of, and that being the formal review in August and 3 other informal reviews that are held by the Performance Review Panel, and then one with the full council. So that's very extensive. And the advice was perhaps that we should be considering, as a council, if you wish to, about discussing things with the new General Manager to see whether that's something that she wanted to do, going forward, the status quo or not. And but further, that the ideally that the panel he felt of 4, or both of them felt the 4 was sufficient. But again, the OLG, it is guidelines, but I needed to share that with council because it's a very significant motion that's before us, because it's the first one where we're considering that we need to specifically select a gender to sit on a panel. So that's something that, it is a serious motion, and council need to debate it, consider it. So the motion's there, councillors, for you to consider. Councillor Irvine.
Well, the census pegs it at about 50-50 in terms of representation within the community of males to females, and yet we've got a panel here of four males, so it's not representative of the community, and it's probably not representative of council, as it points out there that there's at least 1/3 of current council are women, and it's good to see. And who knows at September next year what might come about. So I think also we've got a female GM, and I think it would be helpful in that situation to have a female member on that panel for balance. So my view is either Councillor Judd or Councillor Oliver step down to make room for a female representative if they wish, or add a female council representative if neither of those guys want to make those positions available.
Thank you, Councillor Irvine. I also would add that if there was a new addition to the panel, there would be obviously training that would have to take place. Remember that council consider committees. Traditionally, this council have had their performance review panel members appointed for the duration of the term of council, whether that's 4 years or 3 years, the case may be, and therefore undertake that training, etc. However, the September meeting this year, you could have discussions with the current General Manager, the new General Manager that will assume their role from the 10th of July, what they wish to do, and, consider it at that time. But anyway, again, we're dealing with what's before us. And I go to the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, seeing that we do have a new General Manager coming in shortly, my feeling is that we're probably getting in a bit early here, that we need to wait till the new general manager's here, settled in, had a bit of time to see how council works and so forth. And I would have thought that, September meeting would be time to decide then, or, whether we stick to the status quo or, rather than try and make a decision now. I'd like to see this motion probably carried over to the September meeting.
Thanks, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillor Bushell, further discussion on the motion.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The one question I have, if our council is exceeding the minimum standards, is it legislated?
Not legislated, it's guidelines, but I know...
So can prospectively, can the new general manager state that we have to apply the minimum guidelines? Is that in her right?
So, thank you, Councillor Bushell. A question about notice to the General Manager.
Well, they aren't procedures or whatever, they are guidelines, best practice guidelines from the Office of Local Government. They can be changed, they definitely can, but generally speaking, we follow the guidelines, but as I said, there's no reason why council can't go outside those guidelines apart from you moving away from established practice.
Thank you. Further, Councillor Bushell.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, General Manager. I just thought, if someone's new and afresh and wanted to do their bit, they might be able to change everything that they would like in the council. So, I just thought that maybe we are probably preempting it a little bit too soon.
Thanks, Councillor Bushell. I'll go to Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm against this motion. The reason why I'm against this motion is that council choose who is to be on that remuneration committee. They choose who they think is the most appropriate person. I'm against it because I don't think we should have any specific qualifications, specific people who should be in there, as in whether it's gender or whatever, unless they are specifically qualified. They've got a degree, experience in that area or something like that. If council have shown that gender doesn't, we don't choose based on gender because we've chosen, we've had a general manager male before, now we've chosen a female, and it was, we had 3 males and 1 female, and we've obviously chosen based on qualification and person with that experience. So I wouldn't like to see council go down this road where we have a particular person specified to come from a certain group, unless they've got those, as I said, unless they've got that qualification. I think it can be a slippery slope because there are many interest groups around at the moment that would like representation. I think council need to pick the one who we think will be the best in that role, whether it's male or female or whatever.
Well, thanks very much, Councillor Good. I go to Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I don't really think women are an interest group as such. I think we're just women. And I think our community has elected 3 female councillors because they wanted 3 female councillors, and our community are 50% male and 50% female, and I think it's the first time we've had 3 women on council, and I think that's a good thing. And I think for a new GM coming in who is a female, I think it can be quite daunting having a panel of 4 men review you as a general manager. And I think unless you're a woman, you probably wouldn't necessarily sympathise with that view. So I don't think doing it post her appointment is appropriate. I think we need to reflect our community's views and show the example to our new general manager that we embrace the new female general manager and embrace female representation on her review panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McLaren. Further discussion on the motion, the notice of motion. Councillor Oliver, do you wish to comment? I think we've heard from everyone. Councillor Oliver.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. No, look, it doesn't particularly worry me, male or female. I can sympathise with what Councillor McLaren just said, that it might be a little bit overwhelming for our new General Manager to have 4 robust men sitting in front of her. But, yeah, look, if it helps tick a box, I'd be happy to step down and make way for a female councillor, female member on that General Manager's review panel. It's not gonna, I'm not going to die in a ditch over it. I was elected democratically, but if we've got to tick a box, I'm happy to step down. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Oliver. I don't know. The council needs to determine whether they want to tick a box or not, but it's a very generous and very selfless offer, which is probably thrown a cat amongst the pigeons. But I'm deferring back to Councillor Judd and Councillor McLaren. Yeah. Councillor Judd, sorry, Councillor Reinhold, I beg your pardon. Councillor Judd.
Yeah, my suggestion was not to anyone to be standing aside, just to virtually a temporary arrangement for the rest of this term to have an extra person, you know, an extra member. And I can see, you know, for the next term of council, you go back to the recommended guidelines. But I think it's just a unique situation at this point in time. I think I can't see really any real problem with just having an extra member for the, you know, the 15 months we've got left. So.
Thanks, Councillor Judd. Well, as long as we know that if that was the case, that, you know, there's training involved and there's cost involved, of course, as long as, you know, everyone's fully aware of that point. So, councillors, you have a motion there before you that Councillor Judd and Councillor Reinhold have moved that the General Manager Performance Review Committee increase membership from 4 to 5 members to include a female member to better reflect the gender profile of council, with the change to take effect immediately for the term of the current council. Now, I don't know whether Councillor Reinhold, do you have anything to add to close debate? No, thank you. Okay, councillors, I'm going to put it to you. All those of that opinion, please raise your hands. All those to the contrary, I declare the motion carried. Thank you. Now, let's go to page, sorry?
Won't you have to elect someone?
Does it say take effect? Oh, immediately, yes. You're quite right. So, councillors, there needs to be a nomination for the General Manager's Performance Review panel. To sit on that, coming from the ladies that serve as councillors. Councillor Reinhold.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to nominate Councillor McLaren.
Thank you. Councillor McLaren's been nominated. Is there a seconder for the nomination? Councillor Irvine, thank you. Councillor McLaren, you've been nominated. Do you accept? Thank you. Further nominations? If not, I declare Councillor McLaren appointed to the General Manager Performance Review panel. Now, page 310, urgent business without notice. No urgent business without notice. If not, then we go to page 311, councillors' information paper. Any items that councillors wish to comment on? Councillor Judd.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I take you to the Heritage Committee reports on, 345?
345.
Down the bottom, there's a little gem there.
Oh, sorry. Motion to receive the report. I beg your pardon. Councillor Judd. The Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, moved and seconded. All those without opinion, please say aye. The contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. My apologies. Councillor Judd.
Down the bottom of the report on page 345, it mentions a comment by Earl, and that's Earl Kotzer. Earl's been a member of our committee just in the last 12 months or so. He's, as you know, Earl's a bit of a character, but he's made some worthwhile contributions, and this day sort of blew me away, really. So anyway, we've just recently had the tribute to Marie Norell at the museum, part of the celebrations. Anyway, Earl's come up with the idea, he's floating it, it's not a recommendation yet, but floating the idea that maybe we should be erecting a statue to Marie Norell, and something, anyway, it's something I applaud. I think it's an idea worth looking at, but I just draw your attention to that, because it just come out right out of left field at once.
Indeed. Thank you, Councillor Judd. Councillors, any other items? Who's got? Councillor Judd, you concluded. Thank you. Councillor Reinhold.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just a question for the Environmental Services Director. About bats, how are we going? Have they moved on yet?
Thank you. The Director.
No, they're still there, but I think they're in less numbers.
Right. Thank you.
I walk past it every day.
Pardon me. Thank you. We go to the General Manager.
Just to mention in the late reports, the Councillor McLaren will be pleased to know that the trove has been reinstated. So that's a really good result.
Thank you very much. Anything further? If not, councillors, in accordance with section 10A of the Local Government Act, pardon me, 1993, advise, pardon me, that there are several matters that are deemed confidential, and accordingly, pardon me, I require a motion to have those matters considered. Oh, how's the engineering assets manager going? Thank you. The recording has commenced. Councillors, senior staff, I thank you, and we resume back into open council, and I advise that the following motions have been brought forward from closed session into open session. Motion to move into confidential session on the motion of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair and Councillor Reinhold. Council moved into confidential at 5:34 p.m. and the motion was carried. Minutes of the Access and Equity Committee meeting held on the 9th of May 2023. On the motion of Councillor Bushell and Councillor Good, it was resolved that the reports be received and the motion was carried. On the motion of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair and Councillor Reinhold, it was resolved that the reports and recommendations as presented be adopted and the motion was carried. Minutes of the Assets and Operations Committee meeting held on the 9th of May 2023 on the motion of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair and Councillor Bushell, it was resolved that the reports be received and the motion was carried. On the motion of Councillor Judd and seconded the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, it was resolved that the reports and recommendations as presented be adopted and the motion was carried. Minutes of the Economic Development Committee meeting held on the 9th of May 2023 on the motion of Councillor Bushell and Councillor Judd, it was resolved that the reports be received and the motion was carried. On the motion of Councillor Irvine and Councillor Bushell, it was resolved that the reports and recommendations as presented be adopted and the motion was carried. Minutes of the Temora Agriculture Innovation Centre Partnership Committee meeting held on the 4th of May 2023. On the motion of Councillor Good and Councillor Judd, it was resolved that the reports be received and the motion was carried. On the motion of Councillor Oliver and Councillor Judd, it was resolved that the reports and recommendations as presented be adopted and the motion was carried. General Manager, Process and Outcome Report. On the motion of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair and Councillor Judd, it was resolved that the report from Mason Blackadder on the General Manager's recruitment be noted and the motion was carried. Highfields Development. On the motion of Councillor Irvine and Councillor Good, it was resolved that Council 1 approve the application for assistance under the Development Infrastructure Deferred Payment Policy in accordance with the report. 2, approve the request of the applicant for council to design and construct the proposed detention basin to support the future Highfield Estate development the ownership of which will be transferred to council on registration of the subdivision. And 3, offer an at cost construction contract to supply and install a stormwater pipeline from the future detention basin along Melaleuca Street to Burley Griffin Way, and that motion was carried. Councillor Good declared a pecuniary interest in relation to item REP 23-694 due to having submitted a tender. Councillor Good left the chamber at 6:25 and took no further part in the discussion. Legal services tender. On the motion of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair and Councillor Reinhold, it was resolved that Council accept the tender from Granleys & Co for the provision of legal services for the 3 years ending 30 June 2026, and the motion was carried. Councillor Good returned to the chamber at 6:36 p.m. Growing Regional Economies Fund. On the motion of Councillor Good and Councillor Irvine, it was resolved that Council submit an expression of interest for the Air Park Estate Expansion Project under the New South Wales Growing Regional Economies Fund, and the motion was carried. On the motion of Councillor Good and Councillor Reinhold, it was resolved that Council moves the motions from closed session into open session, and the motion was carried. On the motion of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, and seconded Councillor McLaren, it was resolved that Council moves out of closed Council into open Council at 6:45 p.m. The motion was carried. May I please have a motion to formally adopt all of those resolutions? Thank you, Councillor Good. Councillor Reinhold moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Well, councillors and senior staff, thank you very much. We've had a very productive meeting, and I thank you all so much and declare the meeting closed.